I am so glad to be with you today. Today, I want to share a couple of inspirational stories that will encourage you to look around you for opportunities to touch others for, of course, the betterment and to be an encouragement and a blessing wherever you are today. Now, these two stories, of course, are so important. The first story is, of course, of a little lady who was living in her own country and she was thinking about how that she could help others. Well, this particular little lady decided to go to another country. The country was, of course, India. And she wanted to work among the poorest of the poor. That lady's name, of course, was Mother Teresa. When Mother Teresa arrived in Calcutta, she found it to be a dirty and disgusting place. And she looked around and she said, okay, where can I be of the best benefit? How can I help people? And she looked around and she saw that one of the major problems in Calcutta and India as well was a disease called leprosy. Now, leprosy is a skin disease, but it is also a disease that attacks other parts of the body. And ultimately, it will disfigure and ultimately kill someone if left untreated. And so basically, it was the scourge of the ancient world because people didn't understand topical medicine. They didn't understand the importance of course, antibiotics, which are two particular things that can arrest and even stop leprosy. Of course, today we understand all of that. Today we understand modern methods of dealing with different types of diseases. But at the time, the people of India did not necessarily understand that. And of course, they didn't have the resources to be able to tackle the problem. So Mother Teresa arrives in Calcutta and she begins to reach out to the vulnerable. She reaches out to the poor. She reaches out to those who cannot help themselves. And also, as well, she reaches out to the scourge of society. You see, even today, when someone has leprosy, people avoid them. In the ancient world, you would actually have to, especially in the Middle East, you would have to go and find a separate place to live because of the leprosy. And there were all kinds of procedures to protect you from leprosy. But when you got it, it became a debilitating and life altering type of disease. And of course, today, many people can live with leprosy because of the fact of modern medicine. But you see, those things during the time of Mother Teresa early years, they were not available. They were not available to from the government, and of course, because a person was leprous, they would not get the medical attention that they needed. And so this was the world in which Mother Teresa showed up. And not only was she able to get the medicine, but she began building hospitals, not only in Calcutta, but also as well around the world. And she was also able to recruit doctors and nurses to her cause, to the point when she established the Mothers of Mercy and the Sisters of Mercy, as they were known. And she was able over time, and by the time she was, getting into her 70s, the world recognized what she was doing, and they actually gave her a Nobel Prize for her efforts. And this also, as well, elevated her status to worldwide recognition, where she became a individual that was recognized for love, for grace, for mercy and for help. And so she was not only able to help the leper in Calcutta, but people around the world. And her particular organization expanded to other adventures as well. She was still known particularly for helping the leper. Now, she was asked one time, how can you help a person like this? And her answer was this: I look at each person as Jesus in his distressing disguise. And I thought, what a great view of looking at people with a heart and with a view and mindset of love, understanding that some people, for circumstances and choices and other things, are in a bad position. I was seeing a video yesterday of what was actually going on in major cities around the world. A lot of people these days are homeless and vulnerable, not because of any choices that they made, but because of economics. Families are now living in tents. Families are now living in hotels, trying just to make ends meet. And it's not because they're not working hard, it's because the cost of living has become so high that many families cannot even find places to live. I remember this one particular situation years ago. My wife and I, we were on holidays, and this couple with their three children pulled up beside us, and they were in a camper. And we started chatting with them. They were a young couple. They seemed to be having everything together, but we discovered that they were homeless. You see, the husband had lost his job. And in the throes of that situation, they had to move from their home, the rented place that they were living, and they decided for the summer that they would live in their camper. And so they came and they were sitting beside us and they spent several days with us. Now, myself, of course, I was on holidays and I was spending time with my family in the trailer with my family, and we were on holidays. But that particular situation really affected me. In fact, what I did for them was I said, listen, can I do something for you? They said, what would you like to do? I said, can I buy you groceries for a week? They said, you don't have to do that. I said, no, I want to do that. And so we took them down to the local store and we bought them groceries for the week, because the simple fact was I was been trying to be sensitive to their situation. Now, they left a week later because they had been able to secure a place to live in a community not very far away. And I thought to myself, wow, that really affected me, because the simple fact is, I have always had a home. I've always had a place to live. I've always had income enough to be able to take care of my family. Now, there have been times where it got really close, but the Lord was able to provide. And so it was something that affected me. And it made me realize how many people need a hand up, a pay forward. So if you have an opportunity to help somebody and you don't, well, it shows a lack of compassion in your life for others. But if you can help others, you should. Now, I've told you the story, of course, of Mother Teresa. She is well known. But I want to tell you another story that I read this morning about a guy whose name was Nathan Strauss. Now, Nathan Strauss, many people don't know, was actually co-owner of Macy's. Back in the late 1890s, Macy was actually owned by three men. There was a fellow whose name was, of course, Macy. Then there was Abraham, and then there was Strauss. These three men owned Macy's. Now, this man had everything that everybody would want. He had money, he had position, he had power, he was well respected within both New York and Brooklyn because in those days they had, of course, these two stores. And these two stores were um, the most powerful, but also the most prosperous stores, of course, in the America at the time. Now, he had everything, but something happened that caused him to change the direction of his life. When he was in on a trip to Europe, he had left his youngest daughter, his infant daughter, back with a nurse in, of course, in New York or Manhattan. And while they were on, of course, their vacation, he got the news. His infant daughter had died of contaminated milk. Now, contaminated milk or unpasteurized milk at that time was filled with tuberculosis, it was filled with cholera and E. coli. Basically, it was unpasteurized and it was known as the sower of death. Get this: one out of every four children in New York City, in Manhattan, Bronx, Yonkers, Brooklyn, died because of uncontaminated milk or contaminated milk, I should say. And so when he got back to New York City, he asked the doctor, what was the problem? What was the source of this infant's death? And the doctor said without any hesitation, contaminated milk. And he then began to look at the statistics. He went to the city hall and found these statistics that one in four children died in these urban settings because of contaminated milk. And so he had learned of a new particular scientific process from a guy named Louis Pasteur. Louis Pasteur had seen the same problem happening in Europe and decided to do something about it. He developed a particular process called pasteurization, named after himself. So, right then and there, Mr. Strauss made a decision. And his decision was that he would never allow another child in New York City or America to again die of contaminated or unpasteurized milk. So he then set up in the city of New York and ultimately around the country different pasteurization stations. He also, as well, made a large place where pasteurization could happen. Now, at first, people resisted. They could not believe that actually, milk, unpasteurized, would have this effect. But he began a campaign in his stores, and he would sell milk at a ridiculously low price. And also, as well, he also set up stations, places where people could get unpasteurized milk, I should say, with, of course, free. Do you know what happened? Between 1895 and 1925, he saved over 400,000 children in New York City alone because of his campaign to pasteurize milk. Now, the dairy industry, of course, was totally resistant. They said, oh no, there's nothing wrong with our milk. We, of course, et cetera, et cetera. But through his campaign, he was able to not only make pasteurization a process for the dairy industry, but also it was regulated in government. And by 1925, after 30 years of resistance, both on the local level, on the city level, and ultimately by the national government, he convinced them by the statistics and how that, in New York City, Literally, hundreds of children were dying. Thousands of children were dying. When pasteurization came into effect, the death rate because of contaminated milk almost disappeared. It almost disappeared. Why? Because of a tragedy that happened in his life. You see, we can turn things that are bad that happen to us into something good. And that's why both Mother Teresa and Mr. Strauss saw a need. In the case of Mr. Strauss, it was a tragedy that turned around something and made it actually a good situation. Depending on our mindset and depending on the direction that we are going, we can turn something bad into something good, or we can help others who cannot help themselves. You see, my exhortation for you and I today is, of course, to have the right view of the world around us, not have the selfish view, because so many people today have a selfish view. They have a view of, basically going by. There was a social experiment, and this was kind of interesting. There was a man who fell down on the streets of a major city. And because he was dressed like a beggar, nobody, not one single person, helped him get up. But as soon as he changed into a suit and a tie, and when he fell down on purpose, people surrounded him and helped him up. The social experiment was simply this: people only see what they want to see. People only help when there's a certain view and a certain mindset. You can walk by someone and they will be sitting there. A perfect example was one time there was a young lady sitting outside of a store, and she was sitting there and she was asking people to help them. Not one person, not one person in the time that I walked into the store and walked out of the store helped her. I asked her. I went into the store and in my mind I was going to help her. And when I came out with a bag of groceries and handed it to her, I asked her the question. I said, "Has anybody helped you so far?" And she said, "No." Well, I said, "Here. This is going to help you." And she thanked me. Now, when I went into the store, I didn't tell her what I was going to do. But when I came out, I helped her. Why? Because of a mindset. You and I have to have a mindset. James put it this way. He says, when it's in your power to help people, do it, because it shows that you are a person who has grace. You are a person who has love, compassion, and also as well, you have a mindset to see the vulnerable. Many people pass by the vulnerable every day. It's easy to do because it's all around us. But if you are able to help others, I would encourage you to do that. I gave you the example of Mother Teresa, and I gave you the example of Nathan Strauss. Please, when you have an opportunity, do that. That's my simple exhortation to do you and I. You and I are here not to, basically get and bring things to ourselves. It's not all about us. It should be also about others. Let me close with this example. There was a man who went to the streets of East Side London, to the areas of London that were not so wonderful. Now, he grew up in a very prosperous home, but he had the right mindset. And he said, I'm going to make it my life's mission to help the poor and the vulnerable. His name was William Booth, and William Booth was the founder of the Salvation Army. And William Booth was asked one time, how can you minister to the vulnerable. He said, can you give, a reporter said, can you give me in one word what the Salvation Army is all about? And he said, others. So today, make it your life mission to help others and to see what other people don't see. See those who are invisible. See those that are vulnerable. See those who cannot help themselves. Do it, and you will change not only your world, but the world of others as well. It's a simple act of kindness, but your one act of kindness could change the life of someone. This is a humorous story that I'll close with. I was going to close with the other, but this is a humorous story. There was a young lady who had, found herself in a position where she had lost everything because of a decision and also as well a loss of job. And she found herself in the line at Hope Mission. That's an organization that helps people in Edmonton who find themselves down and out. And there was a guy who was homeless standing beside her. And he said, hey, what happened to you? And she shared her story. He says, well, man, he says, isn't this the life? Aren't you just enjoying this freedom? And she said, no, I'm not. And that one decision made her turn around and head to the counseling booth at Hope Mission. She had a conversation with them and she says, I do not want to be homeless. She says, I want to make something out of my life. The counselor said, let us help you do that. And within a year, she had gone back to school. She had learned to become a heavy equipment operator. That opportunity gave her the chance to work in a city in Alberta called Fort McMurray, which is, of course, a place where a lot of different oil activity happens. She got a great job as a heavy equipment operator and was earning almost $200,000 a year. She fell in love. She met a man and they had a family together. And she shared her story with us here on the radio when I was doing radio at AM 930 The Light. And she said, it was that one statement from that guy that turned my life around. He meant it as, of course, an opportunity to live the carefree lifestyle. She said, I didn't want to live the carefree lifestyle. She said, I wanted to make something of myself. And she did. But unknowingly, that fella changed the direction of his life. He might have done it humorously, but you never know. One statement, one act of kindness can actually change someone's life. So be available, be looking around, and when the opportunity comes, do it. Well, that's my exhortation for you today. That's why I shared these stories. Now, if you like what you're hearing and seeing, I always encourage you to press the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, as well, check out my daily YouTube shorts. I did several of them already today, and they'll be up very shortly. So check them out as well. My name is Robert Dean Steele. Thank you for spending time with me. Have yourself a great and godly day, and go be a blessing.